Kurama is a vicious criminal. But it's honestly very easy to forget that. Actually, it's kind of easy for me to forget about Kurama in general. Now, no, of course I don't mean that I literally forget he exists. I don't look at pictures or watch the anime and find myself talking like Kiki Palmer.
I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is.
But whenever I think back on the series, I often think of the Dark Tournament, one of the best arcs in like anything ever, that somehow manages to be action-packed, emotionally poignant, grandiose, and yet intimate. The complexity, intrigue, and the uniqueness of the chapter Black Saga. I think of the brash delinquent who learns how to allow himself to care, the lovable fool whose morals and heart just can't be stopped by anything, and the cold-hearted killer who finds warmth in his companions and allows himself to care about something other than himself, and all the intense moments of butt kicking that take place in between and around all that. There's so many things that have me looking at my Yu Yu Hakusho Blu-rays like Snake talking about.
Kept you waiting, huh?
But unfortunately, Kurama is usually the last to come up whenever I reminisce about the series. In a lot of ways, Kurama gets overshadowed by the more in-your-face personalities and actions of the other members of Team Urameshi that just demand more real estate within my mind. It isn't really until I'm re-watching the series where I remember how much of an impact Kurama actually has, how great he is as a character, and how dastardly the man really is. Of course, Kurama is not pure evil, but I mean...
You sure about that? You sure about that?
But the name of the game is duality. Kurama is characterized by his genuine human kindness and his true demonic heritage. That balance, along with his cool, calm, and collected nature, makes it so that he kind of flies under the radar until viciously reminding you who he really can be. When we first meet Kurama, he's super unassuming. If you look at him, he really doesn't seem to fit with this gang of hooligans that robbed, like, the waiting room of heaven. Kurama looks like just a guy, and he's even wearing a school uniform. Then when Yusuke shows up to do his ghost busting, he just politely excuses himself. Off the bat, we already have some strange contradictions, and you kind of don't really know what to make of him. Once Yusuke actually interacts with him and we learn that his only reason for stealing the mirror was to save his very human mom, and the fact that he comes to Yusuke's rescue while he's fighting Hiei, it's easy to somewhat write him off as just a super nice dude. And when you have this dude literally eating souls and this freaky little eyeball man, it's almost possible to forget that Kurama is actually a demon. Right now, he's just a sweet dude doing crime for all the right reasons. Aww. But let Hiei tell you, that nigga lying. Sweet human boy, I don't know him. Because the next time we see Kurama is during the infiltration of the Saint Beast's castle, where Hiei tells us,
"Do you know why I chose him to be my partner? To avoid fighting him myself."
However, even with that being said, Kurama is still able to slink his dirty demon cruelty past my sensors. Kurama is first up and he fights Genbu, and it's pretty, I don't know, in one eye and out the other. Like, it doesn't really stick with me. Like, it's not a bad fight by any means, but once the underdog versus Goliath battle occurs, the high speed, high impact, blink and you'll miss it fight with the ice dragon zooms by, and the truly desperate struggle against two birds and a tense race against the clock comes to stress you out, well, I'm just not really thinking about the dude made of rocks. However, I do think that there are some important little seeds in that fight that do show a little of what lies beneath the surface, and hint at some things that we would learn about Kurama later in the series. He goes into that fight with the mindset of observe first, almost as if studying his prey. He doesn't even start the fight with his weapon out. This is a habit of his that we learn about later.
You're playing a dangerous game, Kurama, waiting to gauge the enemy's weakness before you attack. You could at least draw your weapon.
But it is on full display here. Kurama won't really make a move until he believes that he fully understands his opponent, even if he takes damage in the process. Because that way, once he makes his move, the fight is basically over. And, well, that's what happens to Genbu. The true coldness of that fight is kind of downplayed because it turns out that, well, Genbu can just pull himself back together and because of Kurama's demeanor, but it's pretty straightforward and to the point. And Kurama somewhat pettily dispatches him while he's begging for his life. Also, it is kind of interesting that Kurama is the only one that doesn't really have any emotional component to his fight. Yusuke is obviously fighting for good and battling Suzaku in order to protect Keiko and the human world. Kuwabara is there for the same thing, but also fights Byakko to prove himself and have an honorable duel. Even Hiei's coldness begins to shift, and he shows an intense anger over the treatment of a fallen enemy, and that fuels his fight against Seiryu. But for Kurama, it's just a job and it's gotta get done. It's super easy to not see those things at that point in time, but it's also kind of cool to look back at it with hindsight and see how very much Kurama that fight really was, as well as to see how many other moments and even fight placements can really overshadow something, because that fight is the last one that comes to mind when I think of that arc. After the Saint Beasts, Kurama is kind of low-key during the Tarukane estate infiltration, so not much really goes on with him there, but I think that makes this a good opportunity to bring up the fact that Kurama is hilarious.
Come, join us here. We're practically a family here.
All throughout the series, Kurama just makes these little jokes or these comments that always just get to me.
Because of his armor. It contains his power.
If it contains it, then why the hell would he take it off him?
No, that's what I meant by contains is that his armor keeps his power from escaping. Definition number 2.
And I just never think about that until I'm re-watching the show. With Yusuke and Kuwabara, maybe even Botan, being the characters that you most often associate with being outright funny, I always forget that Kurama is too.
Sorry, Yusuke. He insisted.
I don't even have anything else to say about that. He's just funny.
I think she's gone crazy.
You're hardly the standard for wild outbursts.
The next time we really see Kurama active is during the preparation for the Dark Tournament. With certain death hanging over their heads should they refuse the invitation, Team Urameshi have a few months to get as strong as they possibly can. So Kuwabara decides to train with Kurama and Hiei. However, Kurama takes over Kuwabara's training because
Hiei cannot prepare you for the viciousness of the fights. Your weakness and his honor make him go easy on you. I will not.
I imagine on a first watch that's probably somewhat of an eyebrow raiser, cause like, you're telling me that Hiei...
Yes, tell them I'm her brother. I'll rather enjoy torturing you to death.
Hiei wouldn't have the heart to go all out on Kuwabara, but Kurama, Mr. I do it for my mama, will? It's a really small moment that you'll probably stop thinking about as soon as it's over, but it is a small indicator that any and all kindness will shut off when the job has to get done. And as the tournament starts, Kurama gets to work. In the first round of the tournament, Kurama fights Roto. Hiei is basically like, hey Kurama, kill that guy. And Kurama's just kind of like, yep. And after Kurama's trademark assessment, he's basically just gonna like, I don't know, slap his head off or something. It's only because Roto can play on Kurama's humanity that it prevents the fight from being over right then and there. However, Kurama's true demon nature isn't halted for long because the plant that he planted through the rock that was a plant turned Roto into a plant for flowers. I tried to be like T-Pain, but it didn't work, so we're moving on. And once again, Kurama kills a man savagely who is begging for his life. And it is savage. Because of how flowery and non-dismembery the kill is, it's almost easy to write it off as tame, but plants growing throughout your body then bursting out of it like an alien is pretty brutal. Unfortunately, a deceptively brutal kill and 2 heavy-hitting moments follow right after that and kind of just smother Kurama's moment. So back to sweet little Suichi he goes. Because Kurama is sweet. He cares about his friends, he'll protect innocents, and it seems like he doesn't really want to harm anyone these days. But then there is that dark side that every now and then pops out just to say peekaboo. And which side of Kurama you get depends on you and his mood. For example, Kurama went into the Roto fight with murder on his mind, but with the ninjas, respect, curiosity, and eventually empathy caused him to curse Gama's death, that was brutal by the way, and spared Toya's life. Now, what mindset he went into the Yuri Urishima fight, I don't really know, but he did eventually succumb to empathy. Yoko Kurama, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Though Kurama's coldness and actions can sometimes get overshadowed in my mind,
Yoko has returned, they cry,
is unforgettable. Kurama's first regression into Yoko Kurama is definitely high up on the list of things that come to mind when I think about Yu Yu Hakusho. There isn't the sweet human visage to distract you from the dirty deeds done dirt cheap. And there really isn't anything that comes along to obstruct its impact. Kurama said, "So, what up with the box though?"
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, okay. Torture time. The fact that that fight starts and ends with Kurama as Shuichi Kurama is what Kurama is all about, and is what sparks the conflict within him that he would face in the final two arcs. Who is Kurama? Shuichi the human or Yoko the demon? Kurama vs. Karasu isn't bad, but I feel like it's stuff that we've already seen from Kurama. Strategy, Yoko, death plant, and then fade behind the other team members. Yoko is the star of the show here, and we get a bit more of an idea of what he's like, what Kurama is like. And I think that it is Yoko's impact in this and the previous fight that also worked to make Kurama feel somewhat invisible. For me, Kurama and Yoko Kurama do feel very distinct and separate. In some ways, they actually are, but that separation at some level makes me feel like these are two separate characters, and Yoko's moments are Yoko's moments, not Kurama's. So because of that, it's almost like a few of Kurama's most impactful moments low-key don't belong to him. However, the chapter Black Saga is where those two separate identities collapse into each other, and all the little moments finally add up to form the full picture of who Kurama is as a person, and just how great, impactful, and interesting he really is. Kurama is also just more active in the earlier stage of this arc comparatively, giving him more screen time and allowing us to see a bit more from him outside of combat. I think this is important as it helps to make what happens later with Game Master way more effective for me. In the lead up to Sensui, Genkai sends 3 newly awakened psychics to test the gang, and the first up is Kurama's classmate. After Hiei's ego makes him run his mouth reckless, Kuwabara gets low-key cheated, and Botan goofs, it's all up to Kurama to defeat Kaito and reclaim his friend's souls. On reflection, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the series. It's entertaining and engaging without relying on actual combat. We also get treated to a showcase of Kurama being the smart one. We see how Kurama is able to bypass the no violence rule, as well as set up a situation that all but guaranteed his victory. We also get one of Kurama's coldest lines.
I'm warning you. You so much as bruise what's in your hand, and I'll show you pain. The hue of your soul will cease to matter because you will not be judged when you die. You will no longer exist.
Now see, if that were me, hearing that, I'd quit. I'm done. I'm crying. I'm going home. But this isn't the last time Kurama will come into conflict with humans, because during the arc, since we made it a point to test their moral compass,
dare you risk that erratic weapon among civilians?
By directly involving humans at every step of the way. And that slowly ate away at Kurama, climaxing with their run-in with Game Master. Since we had recruited a child, no, not the buff 14-year-old kind, but an actual child, to face off against Team Urameshi, Game Master's ability to bring video games to life and force all parties involved, including himself, to act out the roles of the characters without exception, placed the group into an ethical pickle, and Kurama is the first to realize. Because by the narrative of the game, Game Master will die if they win. Can they knowingly and deliberately kill a manipulated, ignorant child in order to move on? Being put in this situation really affected Kurama. He really isn't the same demon he used to be, and the killing of a human child that really just didn't know any better will 100% weigh on his soul. However, Kurama's demonic mentality allows for him to call upon his practicality and coldness to do what must be done. So, as Kurama steps up to Math Tetris, he's already decided that he will win and kill Amanuma, the Game Master. And immediately he starts going for mind games. Kurama said, cool, fun game. You know you're gonna die, right? That boy said, huh? Had him looking around like Mr. Krabs. Kurama explains mid-match that since we used and manipulated him into starting a deathmatch, and immediately he starts selling, just stumbling and fumbling. Amanuma is like, can we stop this? And Kurama's just like, well, I'm not gonna lose, so can you shut the game down? No? And the proceedings go as theorized. Kurama wins, Game Master dies, and Kurama is mad. Jesus leading Christ. To basically my favorite Kurama moment. Angry Kurama is a maniac. He told Yusuke, boy, if you don't get out my way, decapitates this man in seconds, says,
oh, it stinks.
Now come out, Toguro.
And proceeded to put this dude into a sink fetus-looking Doom Tree-induced infinite genjutsu. I synced it was ruthless. It's a moment that always stands out to me because it's kind of the culmination of the deceptively dark and forgettable moments mixed with Kurama's humanity and compassion. Because yeah, Kurama was mad at Sensui for putting him in that situation, but Kurama was also really bothered at killing a naive human child.
You don't know shit. You don't know shit.
And he was mad at himself for caring so much. It's the complete package of Kurama: humanity, demonosity, and the struggle between the two. And it's a moment that makes me look back and put all of those pieces together like, oh yeah, Kurama is crazy. The final saga of Yu Yu Hakusho does shed some more light on Kurama's history, giving us more insight into the kind of person that Kurama used to be. And yeah, he was pretty rough. Like Kurama, really? Did you really have to send an assassin after Yomi? You could have just said, you know, we're done working together. This insight does well to show us just how far he's come and the identities that he's been struggling with. His return to Demon World putting those two identities to the test, thus making it all the more impactful when Kurama basically decides who he wants to be, leaving his past and Yoko Kurama behind him. However, by this point, Kurama has already remade his mark for me. That moment in the cave and all the others before taken in with hindsight always jog my memory and remind me that, oh yeah, Kurama is scary. And I love him for it. But aside from being scary, he's also just extremely impactful, layered, and an invaluable piece to the group's success and dynamic. I rewatch Yu Yu Hakusho pretty often, so it's kind of sad that I always find myself in this cycle of Kurama. Who? And I know that I will once again allow Kurama and all his deeds to fade to the back of my mind, upstaged by his peers. But in a way, I'm also glad, because every time I return to Yu Yu Hakusho, I really love rediscovering Kurama.